Hello, my dear friends. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. Today, we're going to discuss some important question regarding Java interview question. So, I hope you will definitely enjoy this video. So, without any further delay, let's get started. Now, the first question we are going to discuss is what is Java and its feature? So, Java is one of the programming language or technology used for developing web applications. Java language developed at Sun Microsystem in the year 1995 under the guidance of James Gosselin and their team. Java, divided into three categories, they are Java 2 Standard Edition for developing client-side application, Java 2 Enterprise Edition used for developing server-side application, Java 2 Mobile or Micro Edition used for developing mobile and wireless application. So let's discuss the features of Java. So these are simple, dynamic, interpreted, portable, high performance, multi-threaded, platform independent, architecture neutral, object oriented, distributed, secure, and the last one is robust. So I already discussed these all features in my previous video. So go through that video and the link of that video I provide in the I button in the above in this video. So let's move to the next question. So the next question is why main method is static in Java. So let's discuss this. Java main method is always static so that compiler can call it without the creation of an object or before the creation of an object of the class. So here is the example. Here we have public static void main method. Here as you see the main method is a static. That is because the compiler can call it without the creating of an object. That's why the main method is static. So this that is the reason why the main method is static. I hope you will understand that. Next question is a very important question. So the question is what are the differences between C++ and Java? So let's discuss each and every difference between C++ and Java. So as the platform independent point of view, C++ is platform dependent, Java is platform independent, and mainly used for C++ is mainly used for system programming, but Java is mainly used for application programming. It is widely used in Windows, web-based enterprise and mobile application. So its design code C++ was designed for system and application programming. It was an extension of B language, but Java was designed and created as an interpreter for a printing system, but later extended as a support network computing. It was designed with the goal of being easy to use and accessible to a broader audience. And on the behalf of GoTo, C++ supports the GoTo statement, but Java doesn't support the GoTo statement. Next one we have multiple inheritance. C++ support multiple inheritance. Java doesn't support multiple inheritance through classes. It can be achieved by interfaces. So next one is operator overloading. C++ supports that operator overloading, and Java doesn't support operator overloading. Next one we have pointers. C++ support pointers. You can write pointer program in C++. Java support pointer internally. However, you can't write the pointer program in Java. It means Java has restricted pointer support in Java. Next one we have compiler and interpreted. C++ uses compiler only. C++ is compiled and run using the compiler which converts source code into machine code. So C++ is platform dependent. But in the case of Java, Java uses compiler and interpreter both. Java source code is converted into bytecode At compilation time, the interpreter executes this bytecode at runtime and produces output. Java is interpreted, that is why it is platform independent. And call by value and call by reference. C++ support both call by value and call by reference. Java support call by value only. There is no call by reference in Java. Next one we have structure and union. C++ supports structure and union, and Java doesn't support structure and union. Next one we have thread support. C++ doesn't have a built-in support for thread. It relies on third-party libraries for thread support, but Java has its in support. Documentation comments. C++ doesn't support documentation comments. Java support documentation comments to create documentation for Java source code. And the virtual keywords. C++ support virtual keywords so that we can decide whether or not to override a function. Java has no virtual keyword. We can override all non-static methods by default. In other words, non-static methods are virtual by default. As the hardware point of view, C++ is nearest to hardware. Java is not so interactive with hardware, and the object-oriented C++ is an object-oriented language. However, in C language, single root hierarchy is not possible. Java is also an object-oriented language. However, everything except fundamental types is an object in Java. It is a single root hierarchy as everything gets derived from java.lang.object. So the next question we are going to discuss is what are the difference between JVM, JDK and JRE. So let's discuss each of these one by one. JVM. JVM, that means Java Virtual Machine, is a software. It is a specification that provides runtime environment in which Java bytecode can be executed. It not physically exists. JVM are not same for all the hardware and software. For example, for Windows operating system, JVM is different. For Linux, JVM is different. JVM, JRE and JDK are platform dependent because configuration of each operating system differs, but Java is platform independent. Next one is JRE. The Java Runtime Environment is a part of Java Development Kit. It contains set of libraries and tools for developing Java application. The Java Runtime Environment provides the minimum environment for executing a Java application. It physically exists. It contains set of libraries plus other files that the JVM used at runtime. Next one is JDK. The Java Development Kit is a primary component. It physically exists. It is a collection of programming tools and JRE and JVM. Here is the diagram that shows all the JVM, JDK and JRE. Please note this diagram. It clearly shows that the relationship between these three, JDK, JVM and JRE. This diagram is very important. Please note this diagram. Next one is what is JIT compiler? So let's discuss this. Just in time or JIT compiler, it is used to improve the performance. JIT compiler parts of the bytecode that have similar functionality at the same time and hence reduce the amount of time needed for compilation. Here the term compiler refers to a translator from the instruction set of JVM to the instruction set for specific CPU. So here we go. Here we see in this diagram at compile time Java source code, and after compilation Java bytecode is created, or after that at runtime JIT takes into place, which increase the performance of the program execution. So that's why JIT is used. So after that JIT compiler, the code is converted into its native code. So I hope you will clear that concept, why JIT compiler is used for. Next question we are going to discuss is what is platform independent? A programming language or technology is said to be platform independent if and only if which can run on all available operating systems with respect to its development and compilation. Java is a platform independent programming language because when we install JDK software on your system, then automatically JVM are installed on your system. For every operating system, separate JVM is available which is capable to read the .class file or bytecode. When we compile your Java code, then .class file is generated by JavaC compiler. These codes are readable by JVM and every operating system has its own JVM. So JVM is platform dependent, but due to JVM, Java language is become platform independent. So you can more clearly see this in diagram what I am talking about the platform independent in the previous slide. Here we have Java source code, and after that with the help of compiler it convert into the bytecode, and then this bytecode is transferred to the JVM, and then JVM run this bytecode to their native code. So that's why due to the JVM, Java is platform independent, but JVM is platform dependent because each operating system have different JVM. Please note this. Next question we are going to discuss is Java is purely object-oriented language or not? So this is very important question that every interviewer asks to its interviewer. So let's discuss this. Java is an OOPS language and it is not a pure object-oriented programming language. Many languages are object-oriented. There are 7 qualities to be satisfied for a programming language to be pure object-oriented. So they are encapsulation or data hiding. Second one is inheritance. Third one is polymorphism. Fourth one is abstraction. Fifth one is all predefined type or are objects. Sixth one is all operations are performed by sending messages to objects. And the last one is all users defined types are objects. But in the case of Java, Java is not because it supports primitive data types such as int, byte, long, etc. to be used, which are not objects. So please note this. Java is not purely object-oriented programming language. Next question we are going to discuss is what is the purpose of static method and variable? The method or variable defined as static are shared among all the objects of the class. The static is the part of the class and not of the object. The static variable are stored in the class area and we do not need to create the object to access such variables. Therefore, static is used in the case where we need to define variables or methods which are common to all the objects of the class. So next one is what is the difference between string and string buffer? This is very important question which asked in every interview room. There are many differences between a string and a string buffer. A list of differences between string and string buffer are given below. So let's discuss. String class is immutable and string buffer class is mutable. String is slow and consume more memory when you concat too many strings because everything it creates new instance. But in string buffer is fast and consume less memory when you concat strings. String class override the equals method of the object class, so you can compare the contents of two strings by equals method. String buffer class doesn't override the equals method of the object class. So now let us understand the mutability of the string object with the help of an object, with the help of an example. So here we have string str equals to new string, which have the value techpix, and after that string dot concat. We use the concat functionality of the string, which concatenate two strings. So and that is a solution. After that, system dot println and the string, and the output would be techpix. So let's discuss the explanation. In above code, we try to concatenate the two strings, techpix and solution. As we know, whenever a string is created, that means the object of type string is created. Hence, the string techpix create an object whose reference is assigned to the string object str. Next, I try to concatenate another string solution with the string techpix. Use the method concat of the class string. So this is the diagram that shows the explanation. So please go through this diagram. Next one, the class string buffer provide more functionality to the strings. The object of string buffer class is mutable, that is, its object can be modified. Let us understand the mutability of string buffer object with the help of an example. Here we have string buffer sp equals to new string buffer techpix string buffer dot append solution. So here we use append method for concatenate two strings. So here we print that string and the output would be techpix solution. So uh, the explanation is shown in this picture. Here we have string and the object of string is techpix, and after that string step 2 the object 1 and the text solution. So these two are concatenated. Next question is, what is the difference between final, finally and finalize? So let's discuss. Final is used to apply restriction on class, method and variable. Final class can't be inherited, final method can't be overridden, and final variable value can't be changed. Finally is used to place important code. It will be excluded whenever exception is handled or not. And finalize is used to perform cleanup processing just before object is garbage collected. Final is a keyword, finally is a block, and finalize is a method. So please note this differences. So let's discuss the final and finally keywords with the help of an example. Here we have a class which have class name as bike9. Final keyword int speed limit is 90 and its final variable, and after that we have a method void run, and after that we redefine that speed limit, that is 400, and after that main method and create the object of that bike class, and after that uh, we are calling the function with the help of an object, and so in this we cannot change the value of speed limit variable because it's already the final. So this is the use of final as the variable level. And finally keyword in Java example, here we have class test finally block. Here we have public static void main method, and we have try block in which int data, that means 25 divided by 5, and after that we print that with data, and after we have catch exception, that is null pointer exception, and after that we print e. Then finally block system.out.println. Here we here the rest of the code after the execution of try catch, then finally block is executed even the exception is occurred or not. So let's discuss the finalize method example. Here we have class Java finalize example, and after that we have main method Java finalize example, that's creating the object, and after that we print that object, and after that the garbage collector is created, and then after that have a finalize method, and finalize method called, and that's how the finalize method is called. So please note this diagram, sorry, please note this example. So next question is, what is the difference between string buffer and string builder? So here is the difference. String buffer is synchronized, that means thread safe. It means two threads can't call the method of string buffer simultaneously. But in the case of string builder is non-synchronized, that means not thread safe. It means two threads can call the method of a string builder simultaneously. String buffer is less efficient than a string builder, but string builder is more efficient than string buffer. Please note this example and this diagram also. So here is the examples of string buffer and string builder. So let's go through this. Here we have a public class buffer test, and after that public static void main string argument, that means main method, and here we have the string buffer and hello buffer dot append, and after that append that hello Java, and after that this is string builder. So this is also the same example. So in that case, string buffer is used when we need a thread safety, but string builder is used when we don't need thread safety. So please note this point. So the next question is this possible to have multiple main method in Java program? That's a very tricky question. Every interviewer can ask to interviewee. So let's discuss. We can overload the main method. So we can define any number of main method in the class, but the method signature must be different. So let's discuss with the example. Here we have class overload main, and we have public static void main and int a, and system.out.println. Okay, and then we override that method public static void main string argument after the system.out.println main method invoked, and then so we are able to override the main method. So there is no problem to having the multiple main method in Java program, but the signature must be changed. So signature must be different. Next question. Is it possible to run a program without main method? Yes, it is possible to run a program without main method. Here is the example given below. Here we have an abstract class which have a demo no main, that extending the some package, and after that we have a static block, and here we print that Java and system.exit. So here we don't have any main method. Here we have only static block, and you already know that static block is executed before the main method. So again, the 15th question we have is explain public static void main string argument in Java. So let's discuss each by each this all statement meaning. So let's start from the main. In Java is the entry point of any Java program. It is always written in as public static void main string and argument. So let's discuss. First one we have public. Public is an access modifier which is used to specify who can access this method. Public means that this method will be accessible by any class. And after that we have static. Static, it is a keyword in Java which identifies it is class based. Main is made static in Java so that it can be accessed without creating the instance of a class. In case main is not made static, then the compiler will throw an exception as main is called by the JVM before any objects are made, and only static method can be directly invoked via the class. Why void? It is the return type of the method. Void defines the method which will not return any value. Main, it is the name of the method which is searched by JVM as a starting point for an application which is particular signature only. It is the method where the main execution occurs. And the string argument, it is the parameters passes to the main method. So I hope you will clear that. What is exactly the meaning of each public, static, void, main, string argument. So next, let's move to the next question. So the next question is, what is boxing and unboxing in Java? It is very popular question that asked in every interview room. So let's discuss. Boxing, converting primitive data types to object is called boxing, and unboxing, whereas converting an objects into corresponding primitive data type is known as unboxing. So let's discuss each boxing and unboxing with the help of an example. Here we have class boxing example 1. Here we have main method which have value int a equals to 50. Integer a2 equals to new integer a. Here we boxed that int value into the object type integer. So after that integer a3 equals to 5. A3 equals to 5, and after that system.out.println a2 plus a3. So the output would be 50 or 5. And in unboxing example, here we have public static void main string argument. Here we have integer I equals to new integer 50. Here we have and after we convert that object into the primitive type, and after that is called unboxing, and after that the output would be 50. Sorry for that. So let's move to the next question. What is singleton class in Java, and how can we make a class as a singleton? Singleton class is a class whose only one instance can be created at any given time in one JVM. A class can be made singleton by making the constructor private. So a class can be made singleton by making the constructor private. So here is the example. Here we have class singleton example. Here we have private static singleton example single object, and after that private singleton example. Here we have the constructor, and constructor should be private in the singleton class. So I hope you will get that. And after that, this is the example. Please note this example. This is very important question. So let's move to the next question. What is the use of singleton class? So whether you know the singleton class, so the next question of the interviewer is what is the use of that singleton class? So here is the answer. Singletons can be used while working with databases. They can be used to create a connection pool to access the database while reusing the same connection for all the clients. So next, let's move to the next question. Here we have question number 19. Why pointers are not used in Java? So it's very important question. Java doesn't use pointer because they are unsafe and increase the complexity of the program. That's true. Since Java is known for the simplicity of the code, adding the concept of pointer will be contradicting. Moreover, since JVM is responsible to implicit memory allocation. Thus, in order to avoid direct access to memory by the user, pointers are discouraged in Java. So these are the reasons why pointers are discouraged in Java. So let's move to the next question. Sorry for that. So our next question is, what are SS modifiers in Java? In Java, SS modifiers are special keywords which are used to restrict the access of a class, constructor, data members, and method in another class. Java supports four types of SS modifiers. These are default, private, protected, and public. So let's go to this table. Uh, Here we have the functionality of the modifier, where we use that modifier. So in the same class, default is used, private used, protected used, and public used. And the same package, default used, private not used, protected used, public used. Same package, non-subclass. Same in the upcoming table. So go through this table. So the next question is, define a Java class. So it's very basic question, but most of the time the interviewer are not able to answer that question. So let's discuss this. Class is a blueprint which is containing only list of variables and method, and no memory is allocated for them. A class is a group of objects that has common properties. So a class in Java contains data member, method, constructor, block, class, and interface. So here is the syntax of the class. Here we have class name, data member, and the method. So I hope you will clear that. Sorry for that. So the next question is, define any object. So what is an object? Object is an instance of a class. Object has state and behavior. An object in Java has three characteristics. These are state, behavior, and identity. So state is represented data or value of an object. Behavior represents the behavior or functionality of an object, such as deposit, withdraw, etc. Identity. Object identity is typically implemented via a unique ID. The value of ID is not visible to the external user, but it is used internally by the JVM to identify each object uniquely. So let's move to the next question, which is difference between method and constructors in Java. This is also the very interesting question for interviewer. So let's discuss method and constructor. Method used to represent the behavior of an object, but constructor used to initialize the state of an object. Method must have a return type, but in constructor do not have any return type. Method need to be invoked explicitly, but constructor is invoked implicitly. Method no default method is provided by the compiler, but constructor a default constructor is provided by the compiler. If the class has none, and method name may or may not be same as class name. Constructor name must always be same as the class name. So okay, another difference is difference between interface and the abstract class. So let's discuss. In abstract class can have abstract and non-abstract method, but an interface can have only abstract method. Since Java 8, it can have default and static method also. Abstract class doesn't support multiple inheritance. Interface support multiple inheritance. Abstract class can have final, non-final, static, and non-static variable. Interface have only static and final variable. Abstract class can provide the Implementation of interface. Interfaces can't provide the implementation of abstract class. The abstract class is used to declare abstract class. The abstract keyword is used to declare abstract class. The interface keyword is used to declare interface. An abstract class can extend another Java class and implement multiple Java interfaces. An interface can extend another Java interface only. An abstract class can be extended using keyword, that means extend. An interface can be implemented using keyword implements. A Java abstract class can have class members like private, protected, etc. Members of Java interface are public by default. Example: public abstract class shape and public abstract void draw. But here is the example of interface: public interface drawable and void drawable. Simply, abstract class achieve partial abstraction 0 to 100%, whereas interface achieve fully abstraction. So the next question we are going to discuss is, what is enhanced for loop or Java for each loop? The Java for each loop or enhanced for loop is introduced since Java to Standard Edition 5.0. It provides an alternative approach to traverse the array or collection in Java. It is mainly used to traverse the array or collection elements. The advantage of for each loop is that it eliminates the possibility of bugs and makes the code more readable. It is known as the for each loop because it traverses each element one by one. The drawback of enhanced for loop is that it cannot traverse the element in reverse order. Here, you do not have the option to skip any element because it does not work on an index basis. Moreover, you cannot traverse to odd or even element only. But it is recommended to use the Java for each loop for traversing the elements of array and collections because it makes the code readable. So here is an example of Java for each loop. Here we have class for each example and have main method, and we declaring the array which have value 12, 13, 14 and 44, and after that we use enhanced for loop or Java for each loop. Here we have for int I colon array, and after that system.out.println, and we print the each element of an array by their index values. So here are 12, 13, 14 and 44. So there is a mistake on printing, so don't mind that. So let's move to the next question. So the next question is, what is difference between this and super in Java? In Java, super and this both are special keywords that are used to call constructor. So let's discuss the difference between this and super keyword. This represents the current instance of a class. Super represents the current instance of the parent or base class. Under the call used to call the default constructor of same class, used to call the default constructor of parent or base class, used to access method of current class, used to access method of the base class, used to pointing the current class instance, used to pointing the superclass instance, must be the first line of a block, must be the first line of the block. So that's all. Let's move to the next question. So here is the next question. Can you override a private or a static method in Java? So the answer is, you cannot override any private or static method in Java. If you create a similar method with the same return type and same method argument in child class, then it will hide the superclass method. This is known as method hiding. Similarly, You cannot override a private method in subclass because it is not accessible there. What you can do in creating another private method with the same name in the child class. Let's take a look at the example below to understand it better. Here we have class base private static void display. Here we display the message static or class method from base, and after that public void print, and after that non-static and class derived that extends the base class. That means this void display and void print are already there, and after that void display with the same signature, but this is private, so you cannot access that method, which is private method. So, and the static method also you cannot access that, so it shows an error. Next question: what is multiple inheritance? Is it supported by Java? It is very hot favorite question out there in the interview room. So let's discuss. If a child class inherits the properties from multiple class is known as multiple inheritance. Java does not allow to extend multiple classes. The problem with multiple inheritance is that if multiple parent classes have the same method name, then at runtime it becomes difficult for the compiler to decide which method to execute for the child class. Therefore, Java doesn't support multiple inheritance. The problem is commonly referred to as diamond problem. So in the diagram, you can see that class C extend class A and class B. So this caused the diamond problem, and that's why multiple inheritance is not applicable in Java. So this is the example of multiple inheritance. Here we have class A with the message hello. Here we have class B with the message welcome, and in the message method, and then we extend the class A and class B. Suppose if it is where public static void main string argument, and then we create the object of class C, and then we call the method message, then the compiler will get confused which message has to call. Either it is for class A message or it is for class B message. So this confusion is called is is created by multiple inheritance. So in Java, multiple inheritance cannot be supported. So that's why compile time error is there. So let's move to the next question. That is difference between method overloading and method overriding. So let's discuss. In method overloading is used to increase the readability of the program, but method overriding is used to provide the specific implementation of the method that is already provided by its superclass. Method overloading is performed within class. Method overriding occurs in two classes that have is a relationship. That means inheritance is come into place. In case of method overloading, parameters must be different. In case of method overriding, parameters must be same. Method overloading is the example of compile time polymorphism, but in method overriding is the example of runtime polymorphism. In Java, method overloading can be performed by changing return type of the method only. Return type can be same or different in method overloading, but you must have the change the parameters. Return type must be same or current in method overriding. Next, move to the next question. Here we have, what is a marker interface? No one telling you this question, so I am going to tell you that a marker interface can be defined as the interface having no data member and member function. In simple terms, any empty interface is called the marker interface. The most common example of marker interface in Java are serializable, or clonalizable, etc. The marker interface can be declared as follows. Here is the example: public interface serializable. Here we have don't any data member and member function. So I hope you will understand what is marker interface, and you will able to create the marker interface also in Java. Next, move to the next question. So next question is, what is constructor overloading in Java? In Java, constructor overloading is a technique of adding any number of constructor to a class, each having a different parameter list. The compiler uses the number of parameters and their type in the list of differentiate the overloading constructors. Here we have class demo int I. Here we have a constructor public demo int a and I equals to k, and after that we have second constructor with the same name demo but different in parameters, where we have int a and int b, and after that it's body. So that's how the constructor overloading take place in Java. Please note this example, it is very important. Now let's move to the next question. So the next question is, what is the output of the following Java program? So here we have class test and I have main method which have system.out.println 10 plus 20 plus Java point, and after that system.out.println Java point plus 10 plus 20. So here we have the output is 30 Java point and Java point 10 and 20. So let's move to the explanation part. In the first case, 10 and 20 are treated as number and added to be 30. Now their sum 30 is treated as the string and concatenated with the string Java point. Therefore, the output would be 30 Java point. In the second case, the string Java point is concatenated with 10 to be the string Java point 10, which will be concatenated with 20 to become Java point 10 and 20. Let's move to the next question. So here is it. So the next question is, what is thread and what is multi-threading in Java? So let's discuss. Let's first discuss the thread. A thread is a lightweight sub-process, the smallest unit of processing. And let's discuss the multi-threading in Java. Multi-threading in Java is a process of executing multiple threads simultaneously. Threads use a shared memory area. They don't allocate separate memory areas, so save memory, and context switching between the thread take less time than process. As shown in the above figure, please note this figure. A thread is executed inside the process. So a thread is executed inside the process. Here T1 and T2 are thread, and after that T2, T3, T1, and so on. Okay. And there is a context switching between the threads always, and there can be multiple processes inside the operating system always, and one process can have multiple threads. Here we have one process can have multiple threads. Please go through this diagram. Okay, so this is the example of multi-threading in Java. Please go through this. Here we have public class group thread 1 implementation implements runnable. So runnable is a class which is used for creating the thread in our Java program. So here we have thread group thread 1 equals to new thread group 1. After that group thread second thread, and after that with the help of start method we start the thread, and we print that value. So after that we run that thread, and the output would be sometimes thread 1 will be get priority and thread 2, and after that thread 2 that thread 1, because there is a no serial no synchronization between thread 1 and thread 2. So that's how thread program works. So the next move to the next question. Explain thread life cycle. This is very important question. This is asked in every interview room. So let's discuss. There are various stages of a life cycle of thread as shown in the diagram. Here we have new, runnable, running, waiting, and dead. So these are the 5 stages of a thread life cycle. Let's discuss each stages one by one in the slides and upcoming slide. So let's discuss the first stage, that is new. In this phase, the thread is created using class thread class. It remains in this state till the program start the thread. It is also known as born thread. Second one, we have runnable. In this phase, the instance of the thread is invoked with a start method. The thread control is given to scheduler to finish the execution. It depends on the scheduler whether to run the thread. Next one, we have running. When the thread start executing, then the state is changing to running state. The scheduler select one thread from the thread pool and it start executing in the application. Next one, we have waiting. This is the state when the thread has to wait as there multiple threads are running in the application. Thread is need for a synchronization between threads. Hence, one thread has to wait till the other thread get executed. Therefore, this thread is referred as waiting state. Next one is dead. This is the state when the thread is terminated. The thread is in a running state and as soon as it complete processing, it is in the dead state. So this is the thread life cycle. Please note this diagram. Very important diagram. So next question is difference between checked and unchecked exception. So these are the different exception that are checked and handled at compile time are checked exception. Exception that are not checked and handled at compile time are unchecked exception. They are direct subclasses for exception but do not inherit from runtime exception. They are direct subclasses of runtime exception class. The program gives a compilation error if a method throws an check exception and the compiler is not able to handle the exception on its own. The program compiler find because the exception escapes the notice of compiler, exception occurs due to the error in programming logic. A checked exception occurs when the chances of failure are too high. Unchecked exceptions occur mostly due to the programming mistake. Common checked exception includes input-output exception, data access exception, illegal access exception, interrupted exception, etc. Common unchecked exception includes arithmetic, invalid class exception, null pointer exception. So these are the difference between checked and unchecked exception. I hope you will understand that. So next question is, can we have an empty catch block? So yes, we can have an empty catch block, but it's an example of bad programming. We should never have an empty catch block because if the exception is caught by that block, we will have no information about the exception and it will be a nightmare to debug it. So this is very true statement. So please keep in mind, never ever have an empty catch block in your program. There should be at least a logging statement to log the exception detail in console or log files. So this is the next question. What will be the output of this program? Please note this the output and tell me what will be the output of this program. Here we and the output would be 11. Please run this program in your computer system and tell me and what is your output and tell me in the comment box. Next question we have, what is the difference between throw and throws keyword? So Java throw keyword is used for explicitly throw an exception, and Java throws keyword is used to declare an exception. So here is the example: void m throw new arithmetic exception sorry, and after that void m throws arithmetic exception method code, and after that checked exception cannot be propagated using throw only. Checked exception can be propagated with throws. Throw is followed by an instance. Throw is followed by a class. This is very important difference. Throws is used. Throw is used within the method, and throws is used with the method signature. You cannot throw multiple exception. You can declare multiple exception. Example: public void method throws input output exception and SQL exception. So I hope you will clear that what is the difference between throw and throws keyword. So the next question is, does Java support operator overloading? If not, then why? In my point of view, no, Java does not support operator overloading. These are the reasons which restricts this language to support operator overloading. These are given below. Simplicity and cleanliness is very there. And after that, avoid programming error. To avoid the programming errors, so operator overloading cannot be allowed in the Java. And to reduce the JVM complexity, that's why operator overloading is not allowed in Java, because when we use operator overloading, for example, we used in C++ the plus operator for adding to integer value and also for concatenation, but in the Java we cannot use plus operator for concatenation, and but because it have only one operation, we have a performing arithmetic operation, so that's how uh, operator overloading is not allowed in Java. So the next question is, explain typecasting in Java with the help of an example. So let's discuss. In Java, typecasting is a method or process that converts a data type into another data type in both ways, manually or automatically. The automatic conversion is done by the compiler and manual conversion performed by programmer. Here is the diagram. Here we have two types of typecasting. Here we have implicit typecasting or explicit typecasting, also known as a narrowing typecasting or a widening typecasting. So please note this diagram. This is very important diagram for typecasting questions. So types of typecasting is implicit typecasting and explicit typecasting. Implicit typecasting. In implicit typecasting, Java automatically convert one data type to another data type. Here is the example: converting int into double. Here we have main class having the main method which have int number equals to 10 after printing the integer value number, and double data equals to num. So after that the double data is printed, so that integer value will become double. This is called implicit typecasting, because we declare the integer variable to double variable, and then data should be the name of that variable, and after that we have this output. Next one we have explicit typecasting. In explicit typecasting, we manually convert one data type into another using the parenthesis. Here we have converting double into an integer. Here we have main method, main class, and then main method, and after that we have double variable having the name number 10.99, and after that is print that double value. After that we have an integer value and the data, and then the output will be like this. So here the user can convert the double into integer value. So this is the explicit type casting. So next question is, what are packages in Java? State some advantages of packages in Java. This is very important question. Packages are Java's way of grouping a variety of classes and or interfaces together. The functionality of objects decide how they are grouped. Packages act as a container to the class. And listing below the advantages of the package, these are: classes of other program can be reused. Two classes with the same can exist in two different packages. Packages can hide classes, thus denying access to create programs, and classes means to internal use only. They also separate design from coding. So these are the advantages of packages. I hope you cleared that. Next question is, does an empty file name with .java extension a valid file or not? The output would be yes. Java permits to save our Java files by .java only. It is compiled by javac.java and run by a Java class name. Here is the example. Please go through this example. To compile java.java and to run java.any. There is no problem out there. Let's move to the next question. So, what do you understand by synchronization in Java? What is its most significant disadvantage? So let's discuss. If several threads try to access a single block of code, then there is an increased chance of producing inaccurate results. Synchronization is used to prevent this. Using the synchronization keyword, make a thread need a key to access the synchronized code. Simple. Synchronization allows only one thread to access a block of code at a time. Each Java object has a lock, and every lock has only one key. A thread can access a synchronized method only if it can get the key to the lock of the object. For example, demonstrating synchronization. So in this example, here we have public class example thread that implements runnable. And after that, we have main method, and we create a thread and start that thread and run that thread. And here we have synchronized and then thread object. In this, it is recommended to avoid implementing synchronization for all the methods. This is because when only one thread can access the synchronization code, the next thread need to wait. Consequently, it results in slower performance of the program because you synchronize that thread. So the key should be locked to that thread, and no other thread can use that key. So that's why we cannot allow to use a synchronized in every thread program, because it reduces the uh, performance of the program. So I hope you will understand the synchronization in Java more clearly with this example. So friends, that's all for today's topic. And if you are new to our YouTube channel, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for upcoming videos. And don't forget to share this video. And don't forget to share this video for our support to your friends. Till then, stay tuned with us. Thank you.